Chad, can you turn on the video?
Yeah, it was on for a second.
So we're good to go now? Okay.
That's you.
All right. Paulina is going to run this meeting. Please, Paulina.
Okay, Chad and I have been working on the agenda and what we want to accomplish tonight. I'm gonna ask him to do some timekeeping, and just quickly, I'm gonna go through what's in front of you. We're gonna spend 10 minutes. This is just follow up on what we said we would do from the last meeting. I don't see in what we've given you today, I wrote up a document that has 7 steps to doing a survey. And we don't have all of those, I don't.
Yeah, it's 2 pages, double-sided. Should be the first page, the second page.
Okay, gotcha, okay. I took a document that's online from Survey Planet. They are just a company who does surveys. And wrote up the 7 points or the 7 steps that they want us to go through, or that one would go through if you want to do a survey. And so 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the first page are what we want to try and get done tonight. 5, 6, and 7 have to do with sending out the survey, analyzing it, and reporting it back off. So let's go back up then to where we are now, and just to update. Is there any input on the council's document that you saw last month that is just trying to lay this out as a process that we can monitor and hold ourselves accountable to moving forward on? Any questions or comments from that? We don't have a copy for you tonight.
No.
Vector analysis, Sharon and I sat with Josh Como a couple of weeks ago, and he put up on his computer, this is data strictly from the, we looked at medical and we looked at fire, and just looked at it. It's almost like heat spots. So if you have more calls in a neighborhood, then the spot is bigger. We took a look at those. The rough estimate, I would say, is that there are more calls in, I'll just say, this part of Gerhardt than the north end of Gerhardt. And then there's a large distance in the fire district, and there's a lot of calls out there too. But as far as Gerhardt proper, my take on it was that there were more certainly medical calls down in this area than up north. Would you agree? I'm asking you.
I agree. I'm looking at it now.
It was hard to tell, 'cause it was kind of, it was very sporadic. It was hard to pinpoint.
My impression was that the calls, majority of the calls were from here north. Is that correct?
Yeah, about Pacific way.
The heat maps are actually attached to your packet, page 3.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
A little bit more detail on 3, 4, 5, and 6, but I think it's 3 is the best picture.
Okay, great. So we can study those, we can get them posted or blogged or something so that the public can see them, but it kind of answers where the calls are. Should that enter into any more decision making do down the road. Chad or the mayor was gonna talk to Mr. Brogdon.
Yeah, and I talked to Leonard Brogdon. We went to the Oregon State Building Codes Division to talk about any type of exemptions that we could get for critical infrastructure. for our building site, and that, there is no exceptions built into that process for the building portion of those types of buildings. So the $9 million foundation, and the way that they were building, the walls and all of that is pretty well laid out in the building, code. For reference, if you look at Manzanita, they just built a 1,600 square foot police station. That foundation cost them $2 million for that 1,600 square foot. And they're under similar soils as we are, about a 60-foot columns is what they needed to do. So we extrapolated that out and looked at what our architects were thinking and the structural engineers were thinking for the 33 to $35 million project, and it maths. It's very comparable. Divided by the square foot of what Manzanita did, multiplied by ours, it comes up to about $9 million. So it's a very similar price point to that. But what we did find out is that we can, if we would like, be able to remodel that building in its current state. And we can do some things, potentially a level 2 remodel to do some things that can make it a little bit better during earthquake. It won't really do anything for tsunami. Earthquake, there's very limited we can do. And we still can't get into the foundation because the soils in this particular location are so poor that the $2 million, $2.5 million grant that we investigated would not be applicable to us because our soils are so poor. They looked at our geotech and decided that it just wasn't a good fit for Gerhardt. This is the one that Seaside used back in the day. So Oregon State Building Codes did say, yeah, you could remodel and put some money into that old building and maybe make it last for. So that was the gist of it. They're able to, if we were to move the police or the fire office from here into there, that would work. It's not until we take police and fire and try to take them out of either City Hall or our current fire station, put them into a new structure, this critical infrastructure, then take over. So we have some options.
List of essential needs, Dana and I did meet, we did not meet with the two chiefs. She has a needs assessment document that was, that she put together at the beginning of the project for the current, station over there, the new station over there. And I think my sense was that you kind of stood by the essential needs and there really wasn't much that you felt we could dice down or make smaller, that you all paid attention to that during the first process you went through.
Right. Right, we just identified what was wrong with the existing, how they weren't meeting the needs that we have now. The existing buildings were not meeting their current operational needs.
And then you took that and designed a new station to meet all those needs.
Right.
Sharon met with Public Works Director. You wanna?
Yeah, so I met with Mark and his first response was to say that he either needs it to be somewhere else or he needs increased space. He said that all machinery sits outside right now, even the stuff that's in the pole barn is not watertight, so stuff gets wet. He also foresees that there will be a need for 2 or 3 more workers within the next 2 to 3 years. He said that if we do put it here, he definitely needs increased space. I asked him in his wildest dreams what he would like to have, and he said he would like to have 4 bays, 2 office spaces, upstairs storage, very small kitchen, carport type for pipes and fittings and stuff like that, and a washer dryer because they do tend to wash their clothes because they get gross. So that was his needs list, if you will. He also said something that surprised me, and that was that he foresees that within the next year that Public Works will be held to critical infrastructure. That's what I got from him.
Insurance and bond rates were questions that were asked, and Chad did some follow-up on that.
Yeah, I did some questions. The insurance, I talked to Knudsen and some with CIS to discuss if we were to do various things with it, remodeling the building, what would that do to our insurance? And they said that it wouldn't really do anything to our insurance. We're already insured for the buildings. It might adjust for value slightly, depending on the work that you're doing. The only concern was that the current building, depending on how much money you put into the building, you know, whether or not insurance would cover a replacement, and they said that it wouldn't. If something happened to the current building and we had to replace it, we might get what we had for a bond placed on that building. Let's say we went out for $5 or $10 million to do all the remodeling in the building around here. You can get that out of an insurance policy, but you're not going to get a replacement value out of it, of course. So that you could replace it with a critically infrastructure building for $33 million. So he says the costs won't really change for the city of Earhart. On the bond rates, we talked about some various scenarios, $20 million bond. If we were able to reduce costs on anything, would cost about $2 per thousand to our community. If we were to do a bond for a remodel and building the public works building, it was suggested that we not do the bond anything beyond 10 years. Typical bonds are 20 years. That seems to be where most communities are, but he would recommend that if we're going to remodel that building and you get anywhere beyond its extended lifespan, which might be another 10 years or so, depending on how much work we put into it, they would suggest leaving it at 10 years. That way, at the end of 10 years, you don't owe anything on it. And then the future community can decide what they're going to do if that building needs to be replaced. So a 10-year bond for 10 million, we have no idea, you know, well, we have a little bit of an idea, but what a remodel and new public works building and a remodel on this building would be. If that was $10 million, 10-year bond on that would be about $1.67 per thousand. Based on that, and he would recommend that the city go for a 10-year bond on that remodel scenario, not a 20-year bond.
So the insurance, potential insurance replacement of the bond money, would that be the entire bond value or just what was left of bond?
Probably what was left minus depreciation.
So they pay off the bond.
What's left of the bond?
And the portion that was
But that doesn't.
attached to whatever it is that's destroyed, but
I mean,
yeah.
we pay off 5 years of the bond and we only get, from insurance, we only get 5 years of the bond.
Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't really help us towards.
A replacement,
Right, and what would the replacement value be? I mean, if it's 35 million today, 5 years from now, it's going to be easily 50 million or more.
by 40s or 50s.
We're putting a Band-Aid on it and we're just kicking the can down the road to where it's gonna go.
Correct.
And if we were remodel, you're gonna talk to us about the foundation depth and whatnot, but I'm not imagining we can make this building last us beyond 10 to 20 years. It's not gonna last us 20 years. The sheer size alone is gonna limit our operation there and require that we have to build something later. You're not gonna be able to add on to it with the foundation issues that you're gonna address here in a little bit. You're not gonna be able to go up.
No.
So.
Right, and then in the future, we might be able to find some more appropriate location and the people may be more accepting of a location that doesn't take 60-foot columns.
And foundation depth.
Foundation deck, Josh, you want to talk about what you, Chief Josh Como, talk about what you found
Sure.
and what you did?
I got an impact drill from ERS and I drilled a hole in all 4 of our apparatus bays. They ranged in depth, they were pretty close. It went from just over 3.5 inches to, was it 4 3/4 inches? Is how thick the floor is. The wall that separates bays 2 and 3, so the first building and second building, because it's second and 2 bays, was the first addition, 6 years after the first one was built. That is, was 12 inches deep on that wall, and the same as I dug down on the west side wall, and that was 11 inches. Was that, foundation down the side there.
So we're gonna have a structural engineer take a look at that, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that follow-up? Okay, so we're gonna, the next little middle of the page, talks about what we're kind of trying to get through, in this meeting. And then if you go down to where it says constructing a survey, 7 steps. And number 1, the first thing that we need to do is identify what we need to know or what is our goal here. And so I wrote in, these are my thoughts only, and they're, not locked in. Obviously, this is a work session. We want to wordsmith this if we can, but try and get agreement on this. Identify the preferences of, and this is a decision we have to make, voters, residents, or homeowners, or all of the above, in Gerhart of an investment in public safety infrastructure. And I think that's what we're trying to get some information on, but anybody want to react to that or anything else to say? Is there anything else we're trying to identify with the survey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's a nice way of saying we're looking for some direction.
Right. And obviously the next bullet points say, we need to pay attention to the location, the cost, and the departments impacted. We are looking for voter preference on location and cost, and we're looking to achieve a decision forward for council to move draft on. Because ultimately we will have to decide whether to go in March, May. In March, we have to decide whether we're going in May.
The only thing I would add to that is that we need to also consider the short-term and the long-term implications of whatever decision we make. We go out for a bond now for 10 years for $10 million. That is a big lump of money to ask folks to pay. And I think some people will have the, again, I'm going to repeat this. Some people will have the impression that that means that we fixed it and they don't need to reinvest in 10 years or 20 years, which is simply not the case. This is just a Band-Aid to get us through.
So when we get to the questions, which are coming up on the next page, I hope that I've identified, I've addressed that, but we can surely do that. Hey, Jess? Okay, so moving on to number 2, it says the same thing that was in parentheses above. We have to define our population. Do we want to know what the voters would like to do? The residents, which is mostly voters and some homeowners, but there are renters as well, who are voters. Or do we want to ask the homeowners or part-time residents, if you will? My bias a little bit would be to try and get as much voter data as possible. But I want to hear what everybody else thinks.
I'm wondering if there's a way I'd like to have data from both homeowners and voters, and I'm wondering if there's a way on the survey for them to answer the question, are you a voter? Or are you simply a homeowner and not a voter? So that might be a question we could put on there, and then we could split it out, but we'd still have the homeowners input.
So you could check box both then.
Yeah, I agree with that. In a perfect world, we would, all of the above would be driving this decision, but really for practicality, what we need to know is what will people say yes to? What will the voters passed.
Mhm.
That's really the information that we need.
Right, but and I absolutely agree with that, but you know, we've got homeowners who are gonna be paying, you know, a substantial amount of whatever we decide on, so it'd be good to kind of know where they lay on this too.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problem with that. I'm just saying that, you know, if it has to be one or the other, then it has to be, from my perspective, it has to be the voters.
And we did that, if you look at near the middle of the packet, there is a document that shows results for the 947 surveys that we received. Back, I don't remember the date on the survey,
Yeah, I was wondering too.
I don't have that on the top, and maybe in or Christie would know. But if you look at all the 947 surveys, then there was residents of Deer Heart, including full-time residents, part-time residents, registered voters, and Deer Heart property owners. Then we had a registered voter of Deer Heart survey list as well, because we did ask that question, are you a registered voter of Deer Heart?
That's not part of the July 2022. That's this one.
No. It's
Wouldn't
not.
that be on the background where it says January 29th, 2019, we had a 3-month period of feedback
Yeah.
for survey
That's,
feedback?
it was 19. 22 was a smaller survey that we did, where we got just about what? 185. Earlier we had 947.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is page 2 of this updated 5/2/19. Is that what that is?
Yeah, and I was in page 1 of that and the results. I
Right,
think that might have gotten. That page might have gotten flipped.
right, okay. So we have data from 2019 where we surveyed voters and homeowners. Mayor's survey, July of 2022. $291 responses. Do we know who it's supposed to? Anybody recall?
I don't think we have voters versus non-voters in that one.
Which one was that one?
That was in 22, July of 2020.
The mayor's?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, it's.
Chad, both surveys were published the same way. They were both paper copies available or online and blogged out, and the water bills.
right. What I was looking at was that the 2022 Mayor Smith survey didn't have a question in it about whether or not you were a voter, and the 2019 survey did.
Yeah, questions 1 and 2, where are you a registered voter and do you own property in Deer Heart?
Preston, any thoughts?
I think that you need to include the people that are up on the front, regardless of whether they're voters or non-voters. Because people who live down on the old drive-in property, there's 4 of those guys down there that don't pay the taxes that the one guy up there does,
Yeah, okay.
okay? So that's my big concern.
So is there,
These people up here are gonna be fronting the bill.
so is there a consensus then that we want to add a question about whether you're a homeowner or a voter? So we can,
Absolutely.
Both,
well, I mean, yeah, both is what I mean.
Yeah.
yes.
Got it. So we just did number 2, we've done number 1, moving on to number 3. Need to decide on the type of survey. Now, on the next page, to go through the 7 steps of creating a survey, you'll see that I wrote an explanatory statement. So this is on page 2 of the packet. The Garrett City Council is committed to find a solution that the voters will accept to improve our public safety infrastructure. The council hopes to go to voters in May of 2026 with 1 or more of the following options for voters to approve. Would you be likely to support a municipal bond for any of the following? Vote yes for any that you would be willing or likely to support, vote no for any you would not support. I'm just gonna pause there and say that the other way to do this would be to put it out in something that's called ranked choice voting. Which is different than a yes or no question. Look at all these.
No.
People don't like ranked choice.
That's right, because you can't vote. If we want to. Sorry.
Right.
I would be in favor of ranked choice only because if a lot of people say no to a choice, but a lot of people say no to like their second choice, then we have an idea that maybe the second choice would float. That's my rationale.
And you may be able to get that from this, if we allow people to say yes to more than one. I would hope that they would, because if we put out there 5 different, and I think we have 5 different options here, and we get 20% back on each one.
Does it have to be completely either or? Is there no way to format the survey in a way that there's yes or no, yes or no, yes or no?
And then do a
And then
ranked
do a
choice.
ranked choice on one particular, you know, in order of your preference?
I mean, you could do them both. I mean, you're basically asking the same question in 2 different ways, really. To me, it would be interesting because you could analyze both sets of data then. As far as ranked choice voting, I mean, when it comes down to it, the procedures for that are pretty easy. It can be done with paper and pencil if you have to. But it can also be done with a Google form. I mean, I did a Google form, put it in ranked choice format, sent it to myself, answered the questions, and sent it back. And it worked. It ranked choice my choices. I did it twice. It did them both times. So,
It's most useful for like limited choices too. If we have, depending on how many questions that we have on something like this. Typically it's 4 to 6 is what works well with ranked choice. If you're gonna do more questions than that, or more options, which I'm not looking at, it can be arduous. Kind of turn into a cognitive burden, if you will, trying to figure all that out, but for smaller surveys and all that, I did some research after Palani explained it to me. Could work out pretty well for us and give us a good solid 1 or 2. So we can play around with that format a little bit, once we decide on the question.
I'm gonna back up just for a minute on the questions. I did not put any demographic questions. I guess we've come up with one to add, and that is kind of a demographic. And are you a voter or are you a homeowner or a homeowner? Is there any other demographics that you would want to know?
Renter.
Respondents' age or say again?
Well, I'm just trying to think, our voters who aren't homeowners are gonna be either renters or people living with mom and dad in the community.
Do you want to know renters?
Sure, because they're gonna vote.
Yeah, but they're not paying any taxes.
But
Well,
they are.
But they don't.
They are paying taxes. Absolutely.
Sure. it's
What do you
part
think
of
their
right.
rent's based on?
Well, there's a. So as far as the demographic, I'm comfortable with, I don't wanna go off into the weeds too much with this, and I don't wanna make so many questions that we lose them, that they won't fill it out, so I'm comfortable just knowing, are you a voter or are you a homeowner? I do wanna make a note before we move on to anything else, though I wanna back up to the explanatory
Yeah.
statement and address some issues there.
So anyway, there is a list here of different types of questions. Obviously, multiple choice, you don't see any on the current questions. We do have yes or no. We talked a little bit about ranked choice. And the only other thing that I put in this from the article was that easy questions should come before more complex ones. And all questions should be relevant to the goal of the survey, which is to figure out what our residents and voters' preferences are. Before we go any further, then Dana, you want to talk about that explanatory statement?
Yeah, your explanatory statement states the Gerhart City Council is committed to find a solution that the voters will accept to improve our public safety infrastructure. And I just don't know if that really addresses the whole scope and the need. It almost, again, sounds like we don't have a problem and we could just choose
Right.
to not do anything at all and things would be just fine, which is not the case whatsoever. Or at least I don't.
So
feel that
something
is-
about,
So, something along the, and also, well, this is something that I just drafted really quickly. The Gerhart City Council is committed to protecting citizens, staff, and volunteers by making necessary changes to the city's public safety infrastructure. And then
this.
And then to do this, the city is looking for input from you. And then the council hopes to go to the voters.
I would advocate for adding to that explanatory statement that something along the lines of, you know, this is a decision, potentially a decision between building for 10 years or building for 50 years. I'd like to see that in the explanatory statement.
So current ideas being discussed and considered include short-term solutions and long-term solutions.
Yeah, but I think if you spell it out, 10 years versus, 50 years, that paints a more exact picture in a person's mind. I know that's embedded in the questions, but I wouldn't mind seeing it in the explanatory statement as well. Because really, that's the bottom line in what people vote for is, do they want it to build for 10 years and kick the can down the road? Or do you want to build for 40 to 50 years? That's the bottom line.
Do you guys want to move on to the questions? Give me a couple of minutes to work on something a little bit while you do that, and then I'll give you a couple of suggestions and you can.
Unless there's any more input for what she's gonna draft. You all.
Not at
No,
this time.
Go ahead.
Okay. The first question is under A. Just gonna read it. Current project as developed by the public engagement process in 2025. 24. It's a typo. This would be a new fire station, new public works building, and a remodel of the existing city hall.
It's a public safety building, not a fire station. I'm sorry to be, that's an.
Okay. Well, I actually. I was a little confused in even writing this where the police department. Because I know they've done some remodel, and so that's why I used fire. Because I'm a little confused as to, like, are they in or are they out or whatever.
The most definitely.
Yeah, got it. Okay, this would be a new public safety building, public works building, and a remodel of existing city hall. Built to critical infrastructure standards for a fire station in a tsunami zone. Or a public safety building.
Public safety includes the fire and police. They're critical infrastructure. Public works at this particular time is not.
Right.
Even though they're the third leg of the stool.
This is a generational solution. Built to be used for 50 or more years. Cost of 2 versions, 33 million, 35 million, about $3 per thousand assessed value of property. Yes, no. Comments, questions? Other than fixing my errors? Question B, remodel of the existing fire station. Build a new public works building and remodel city hall. This would satisfy most workplace concerns for fire, police, and public works, and possibly create more office space and meeting space for city functions. The cost would be about 10 million, about $1.60 per thousand AV. The remodel may only be an effective solution for about 10 years.
Okay, we need to point out that on the 35 million A, it's a 20-year bond. And on B, the remodel is the 10-year bond. That is the difference in the cost
And
as
also,
a way of,
It kind of needs to be in that $1.60 / per thousand AV / 10 years, 20 years.
right,
Okay,
and somehow address the fact that because it's a 10-year and not a 20-year, you're looking at a higher per month payment. So if you go with a short-term bond, you're gonna have to pay more per month. Not quite as much as you would pay on a 20-year for the full brand new building, but still a significant amount. And at the end of that 10 years, then you're gonna have to start paying, or possibly could start paying for a brand new building or sometime very soon after.
right. And so that's reflected in the dollar per thousand.
right.
Yeah, okay. C, new location. Explore new public safety building at Dune Meadows Park. Cost would be about 20 million or $2 per thousand. Yes or no? Comments?
How did we come up with a $20 million thing for Dune Meadow Park?
Thank you. Now, so I think that needs to be said as well, because these prices are not quite set yet. The architects are still working on it.
I mean,
These are estimates that we put into. The thing about Dune Meadow Park and the reserve or the Highlands Lane or Cottages of Gearhart is that the soils are in much better shape than both those locations than they are here at the city.
How do they know the soils are better at Dune Meadows?
Well, we don't have the geotech information from the Dune Meadows Park, but we do have the geotech information on that dune and how it is. Also, the structural engineer and the geotech both explained to me that anytime that you can get over 30 feet away from the aquifer, that you are in much better shape, 30 feet. So let's say that the aquifer is standing, in this particular location, the aquifer is at about 18 feet of elevation. We're at 27 feet, so we're within 10 feet of the aquifer. That makes this site very challenging. Park is at 58 feet. The aquifer is at about 18 feet there. So you're more than 30 feet away from the aquifer. That changes liquefaction entirely. You almost get no lateral spread. Lateral spread is what's making this site so expensive with the columns. What we do know is that the site that was for the, in the Highlands or the cottages at Gearhart, that particular site was less expensive to build on because they only had to go down 15 feet to make the foundation work, not 60 feet. So the foundation was much less expensive there. And that is a probable scenario for the park location.
That type of column.
That type of, yeah, to where 15 feet may be all that's necessary. But I don't have a definitive answer for you there. The architects are gonna go over that with their structural engineer and the geotech as well.
Do you think the question if, it says new public safety building, do we need to add the $2 for 20 years? Would that be consistent to put,
Yeah.
we're talking 20-year bond?
Mhm.
Do you wanna maybe capitalize the word new? Just so people are clear.
Here. Yeah. And is everybody, do we have a consensus that we even want this on there?
I took the Meadows off, and I think it needs to be put back on because of the amount of people that responded and said that would be a choice. Just to get the feedback,
Was that in the mayor's data?
I believe so.
Any other comments on that? Item D, new location, reconsider Highland site as was put to voters in 2022. Would require subdivision to be annexed into the city. This new facility would be built to critical infrastructure standards. I mean, we could do something like that to make it a little more clear. For a police and fire station. Cost is less than downtown location because the dune is more stable, requires less expansive earthwork and foundation. Cost about 20 million, 2 per thousand, 20-year bond. So really, C should reflect some of the stuff that D has in it too, as far as building to critical infrastructure standards and such. Item E, explore other property outside the downtown core that may be available. Anybody want to react to that?
No, but I wanna go back to C and D. Would it be good to put in C and D, the altitude of the sites?
That could be a good idea for as well, information for the person.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments about C, D, or E?
The Highland side is further away from downtown Gearhart than it is to the herding station.
How do you figure that?
That's not true.
I think
I've timed it in my car.
you mean that if we sited it there, we would be farther away from downtown than that site would be from Herding Station.
No,
Or your dining site.
from Herdix Station to downtown is approximately 4 minutes, I wanna say. Now, this is going the speed limit, so this is not like racing along at whatever, 60 miles an hour. The Highlands site to Gerhart Lane takes 2 minutes. At the speed limit.
To your lane.
Gun club.
I'm speaking about not the intersection of Gun Club Road. I'm speaking about to this station right here. The mileage from Herding Station to the cottages is less than from the cottages to the station.
Okay, I don't know, again, I don't know.
Miles.
I don't know about the mileage. I'm
Mileage.
saying going the speed limit, I can't imagine once you reach Gerhart Lane and then come over to here from Gerhart Lane, that's gonna take an extra 2 minutes. Doesn't make sense.
Well, we can follow that up.
We
I
can,
mean, somebody can go out there with their car and measure it.
I mean, typically, Josh, what speed limit are you guys, how much over the speed limit are you guys going?
We don't drive over the speed
You never did. Okay,
The general rule is 10 miles.
can the police chief step out?
The general rule is 10 miles. So that's
That's 30 minutes plan. We're on 30 minutes.
Okay, yeah, we're moving right along. Any comments on having question E on there?
Do we wanna have a write-in ability?
Well, if you're gonna. You mean
No,
like
I don't- I
suggesting
don't.
properties?
I don't think that's necessary because we're looking at something that we have information on. We know here it'll be 35 million. We know it's gonna be 10 million for a remodel. And you start going, well, let's get a suggestion from you and you and you, and all of a sudden we're lost. Well, that's a good idea, but you know, how many people will buy that idea?
Didn't I have on my draft, this would be starting at square one or something like that? I
Yeah.
basically
Says
said,
exactly, yeah.
yeah, it's starting over.
Right.
It's basically just starting over.
Well, I mean, that begs the question, do we even need E? For the purposes of this survey?
I can think of one piece of property that you'd have to buy 2 houses off of. It gives you elevation. But if there happens to be a seismic event or tsunami or whatever it is, you won't be able to get to downtown. You're. And that's up on Summit. That's the only, I mean, that's the only chunk of property that I can think of. And like I say, you'd have to buy 2 pieces of property up there.
Are they for sale?
No,
That makes it hard.
yeah. But I mean, when you look at it logically, that's the only other place that's high enough. It's on the same ridge as what the Highlands property would be. So if you're looking for elevation, you either have the front up here, which I'm pretty sure there's gonna be huge controversy over that. I mean, we're limited.
The cottages is at 70 plus feet, right?
Yes,
And Summit is at 56 or something like that.
depending on where it's at on average, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
58 for the park, 27 for here.
Okay, are we gonna scrap question E,
I would.
Preston?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, the next section, let me go back and look at the notes. Looked at project options, we looked at questions. Well, the next section in the packet. Chad asked me to write up some pros and cons. I'm not sure what we would use this for. He said it was for council discussion, which we can go through there. There's probably a lot more pros and cons, and this would certainly be something that we would use maybe to put out there in advance of the survey. Or even as a page of the survey. Help me out here, do we wanna take a look at this now, or is this more than we wanna do at this point?
I think it's more than what we wanna do, and plus it doesn't quite jive with the rest of the paper. It's got the remodel at $1 a thousand. It doesn't have the rest of it at $2 a thousand for costs,
Yeah.
and we can get rid of the E, so as what I see immediately.
Well, I think pros and cons could be useful down the road as a way of just laying out the alternatives for the voters. So other than what Carrie said, I've added that. Are there any other bullet points? Do you want to get bullet points to me later? I mean, we obviously want it to match what we're saying in the questions.
So pros and cons would be something that would go in the voters pamphlet, right?
But except, I mean, theoretically, we're not going to the voters with 5 different options or 4. So it might be something that we would want to use.
But we could post it on the city's website, and at the bottom, in the fine print at the bottom of the survey, you can say more information can be found on the, by following the link, and you can,
Yeah.
The pros and cons.
is that helpful?
Or if we figure out what the pros and cons are, if there's just 1 or 2 top on each, we could probably write that into the question. Again, we want to avoid leading anybody, we want to avoid getting into an educational type atmosphere, people, but if we were to say something, for example, new location, explore new public safety building at Dune Meadows Parks, cost would be about $20 million. Pros are, well, I guess that would be a really difficult one to use as an example, because the pros are that it's got the elevation, it's flat, and it's available, and the cons are that it's not widely popular, as in the past, and it would be potentially removing some of the park. I mean, that's some of the things that you want to maybe put in there. But we wanted to keep it short and sweet. One of the concerns that I've got is people that I've been talking to who are very supportive of the fire department, police department, just don't understand why we can't put a $3 to $8 million building on this current location. There's still a lot of people who think that that's just what needs to go here. And unfortunately, people just do not understand the critical infrastructure side of this and what legally we can and cannot do. And I think online that thing's been tossed around in all sorts of different ways and haven't been able to clarify. So there should be something in there with the pros and cons saying that, the pros are that, yeah, it's a current location where we're currently at, we keep our community together, that's what people like. The cons are that, it's very poor soils and we have legal responsibility to bring it up to critical infrastructure standards. So this is where the repricing comes into place. But I still have people saying something like that. So there might be some clarifying pros and cons that we need to throw into the questions without leading folks to a conclusion. Do you know how horrible the conditions are and that these people can't even take a shower after a call where they have all this and that on them? What do you think about voting for this? We don't want to get into that. But I think that a few neutral pros and cons into each one of the questions would be written, would be helpful for people to understand a little bit more about it. They can rely on the information that they get out of that versus what they're getting, as it gets spread around online, with good intentions, sometimes it goes badly and people get confused and they lock that down. Just this week, I've had a couple of conversations with folks. Can you do it for 5? I mean, have we heard that price? Is that possible? Like, I wish we could just put a pole barn in there. I wish we could just put something very light. Make it work, give these firefighters and police officers everything that they need to be successful. But that's not possible. So somehow we need to talk a little bit about that when we draft these questions. But I think if we get to the meat and potatoes of what direction we're heading, we can do some of that. And then give it a neutrality test, if you will. Have some people take a look at it. Do you feel like you're being led? Do you feel like, we want to just get down to the data. So yeah, I would think that some sort of pro and con.
I think that the biggest misconception is that the general public doesn't understand what critical infrastructure really means. I mean, it's like, you got a building codes book, and it's this thick. You get to critical infrastructure, it gets to be this thick.
Yeah, I think that even goes up. Just last week, it was the governor announced that she was considering making a law that every state building, whether or not it's in earthquake or tsunami, every state building over 10,000 square feet will be built as critical infrastructure. I'm not sure that they understand what that means.
Well, it's just like when they said you can't build a school or a hospital or a fire station or a police station or anything else in the tsunami zone. And then they took a look at the Oregon coast and said, everything's in the tsunami zone. So then they had to modify that. I mean, Seaside would have had to move their, up to where the Lewis and Clark timberland stuff is. And even then, we take a look at this high school that we got, that they voted for. It's gonna be down on Mohana Road.
When I talked to Javity about this last week, I told him basically what you all have done is created a situation where you have said, we cannot safely build a new building. It's better for you just to sit and deal with your outdated 60-year-old buildings until they fall down around your head and force you to take action. And then still nobody's going to come in and help you. I told him that's exactly what you have done to us. You have made it, you have, with your virtuous, you need to build it to this regulation, you have essentially said no buildings are going to be built.
Councilor, I think he was listening because on Friday when I talked to him, he said the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I hope he did.
He wasn't the one that did that. It was, people about 2 generations before him.
But he's got the same concerns.
He's just catching the heat.
Well, if anybody wants to do a guest column or a blog post or something explaining critical infrastructure.
Yeah, we did about a month and a half ago, and we just need to keep it going and keep it out there. As some of the Facebook groups would pick it up, and I think they did. And there's a couple of them.
And we can run or repeat.
Okay, so we're removing item E for now.
Yeah.
By consensus. Stick with A through D. Add the bond terms to it. And look at a way to add a little bit more information so that people understand the parameters of each location. I think that we could do that, right, Ms. Glenn?
Yeah, and then could we just ask again about the rank choice? Do we want to
We put together a couple versions, one that has ranked choice, one that doesn't, and then test that out as well.
It would be asking the same questions, it's just gonna be, the answer is gonna be 8, 1, 2, 3, and 4 instead of yes or no. I mean, the questions are gonna be the same. It's just which one is your preference, second preference, third preference, fourth preference, instead of yes, no, yes, no. It just may give us more clear data, that's all. In second choices. Next steps then, who, what, and when. So it's gonna be draft a survey.
Yeah, so let's draft the questions A through D. Add some of the explanatory information so that we can get people a little bit up to date. And then let's find a group of people maybe to test it out. Over here. You get the survey, you know, and give it a shot and take a little bit of feedback. Timeline wise, we'd like to get the survey pretty well completed and ready to go within 2 weeks. Get it out, let it soak for at least 2 weeks. Have some preliminary data for the November meeting. And then depending on how much data we get back, how many surveys we get back, you can decide whether or not we've got enough and it's well represented. And you decide which direction you want to move as a council based on what you've learned from the survey.
Okay, so do we need to talk about number 5?
E,
No, 5. Second page.
Distribute the survey.
oh,
Yeah.
Ooh.
The only reason I bring that up is because and I don't understand how this works. But depending on how we're gonna do it. Can it be done anonymous? Can the answers come back to us anonymously? And how do you determine whether one person is not voting twice, for instance?
if we use the software that Christie is suggesting, which I believe would be Survey Monkey, they help us kind of determine, especially people who reply via computer. It does have some MAC address information where it just says, hey, the same computer answered or went out and answered this 5 times. And we'll be able to identify, it won't tell us who it is, where they're at. It won't tell us any information. There is no database of MAC addresses that allows you to figure out who's who. So it would be a completely anonymous survey using SurveyMonkey unless we put name and address as one of the questions. If we didn't do that, then we would be able to tell if somebody had filled out multiple surveys online. Which I think is helpful, and most people don't. We didn't get a lot of identical surveys. We got some from the husband and the spouse. That I think at one point when we were asking, who was answering these things, and it was funny, about a little over 60% of the time, they're actually on different sides of the coin, right? So it wasn't like they were coming up. So I think that we could do a little bit of work there to make sure it is, but without a name and address, we're not going to be able to have a absolute number of what people think. We'll have a pretty good idea though, if we leave it anonymous. We can use the MAC address feature to make sure we don't have somebody putting 25 or 10 or 15 in there. And then we can look at a plus minus. When we get into it, we can look at, errors. Okay, so we got some that were partially filled out, some that weren't. Christy did a really nice job on reporting those errors in those situations. There was a few that we pulled because we did see that there was duplicates and they were exactly the same things. So we pulled a couple of those, but it wasn't a major amount. So I think we get through an honest survey anonymously, we'd be able to get a pretty decent amount of information.
So in terms of distributing the survey, would we have a paper survey? If people wanted to come into City Hall and get a survey? they
Yeah, we
do that?
could. It's amazing on how many of those really didn't, I mean, we did receive some of those, but as a ratio, it was not that high. So it seems like people are getting better and better with computer usage in town. So I think the primary would be going out on the Survey Monkey, but I do believe that it would be wise to offer it in every type of format possible. So whether or not we send out a QR code to everybody to go and do it online, we send them a paper survey to go and do it, and then we put it in, we input it in to Survey Monkey. There's a lot of work there, but we could do that. I would prefer that everybody fill it out online because that would be the easiest on the staff. The next best would be paper that we would input. And then there's some people that might want to come in and ask some more questions. There's a few people that did, they'd bring their paper survey or they'd bring their computer in and they'd say, hey, I got questions about this that I don't understand. And then they actually sat there and filled out their survey and then submitted it then.
Would the emails be used then?
We would end up having to mail this out to everybody in town. Both the voters list and our water bill list. And then we would have to take a look at the property owners list as well and find gaps. We combine those three lists, get rid of the repetitive addresses and names, and then figure it out from there. But it would go out probably a few thousand, close to 2,500.
Can we do it without a QR code?
Can we do it without a QR code? I mean, we can give them every option
Give
as
them a
possible. We can give them a
QR code
QR
or a
code, we can give
link.
them a website, we can ask people to go to cityofyourheart.com and push the big blinking button.
So I was imagining us sending out a paper document that people could fill out and return. But it also said if you would prefer to give us a response, or actually would prefer that you respond on the computer, and allow those who do want to respond on the computer to do it that way. But in a retirement community like this, I'm concerned about not having a paper option for folks.
Yeah, that's why I would think that we would take all of those ideas and put them into one or two different mail outs. And then there's, the other part, Alana and Sharon, I think both of you have mentioned, at that point, then also going out door to door as a potential, just saying, hi, I'm not here to sell you anything, I'm here to ask you to fill out a survey. That's it. And so maybe a combination of those things, because we did get some pretty decent response on the east side of Highway 101, but not a great response. And then that would, if we did a little bit of street work, we can get as many people to respond as possible, and then that way we don't have just the most motivated and well-organized group, whether that be for one of these options or against one, all of the options. You can get as many people to answer as possible.
Do you agree that we're not gonna phone people though?
Yeah, I don't think phone lists are difficult. I was talking to the PR firm and we were thinking about maybe going through them, and they said that was a difficult way to go. They do have some phone lists, but with everybody having mobile phones these days, it's a little different. They thought door to door would be best. Online, paper would be right up there as well. And I think we do a combination of all three. Some volunteers to help out.
So the reserve will be included in this, right?
Yes. The neighborhoods that would not be included in this are the reserve, or excuse me, the Highlands and Palisades. They're not voters, their taxes would not pay for this. They are already paying more for fire coverage than the Gearharshians are.
Well, and then they have to pay for those as well.
Yeah, I think they're paying about 60. I'm sorry, just, I don't think we looked at that lately.
No, one of the ones that I looked up Nehalem, looked up Bay City. Want to know what they're paying? Nehalem's paying $1.15 per thousand. Bay City's paying $2.70 per thousand.
Cannon Beach was paying $1.96 $1.98.
What is this for?
185.
$1.85 per thousand is what Cannon Beach pays for their fire service. Anybody want to take a guess per thousand what your Harshins are paying? Some of you know. I think
20 cents.
It's about 20 cents per thousand.
I think it's 17, isn't it?
You want to go to Seaside Fire and have them come in, it would raise your taxes just for that, by about $1.50.
And you would still need to address the building because it just doesn't meet our modern standards, so
Correct.
especially if you have employed firefighters.
Josh, we're getting great value. I'm a little tired.
The other two bullet points under number 5 determine the number of responses required and monitor the response rate. I need to do more research on that. I didn't really address that at this point in time. I want to go back to your opening statement.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I sketched out, and it's a little bit more wordy than what you had, but it includes the suggestion that Sharon. So the Gerhart City Council is committed to protecting citizens, staff, and volunteers by making necessary changes to the city's public safety infrastructure. The existing outdated facilities have been serving Gerhart for over half a century. The council anticipates asking voters in May 2026 to consider one or more options. These options include short-term fixes, such as a remodel of the existing stations. A remodel may extend the life of our current facilities for approximately 10 years, but could limit options for modification to meet industry standards beyond that. Long-term solutions, such as the construction of a new building, are also being considered. A newly constructed building would be designed to serve the community for 50 years or more.
What was the first sentence?
I'll send it to you right here. I'm gonna try and send it to you right now. The first sentence was, the Gerhart City Council is committed to protecting citizens, staff, and volunteers by making necessary changes to the city's public safety infrastructure. The existing outdated facilities have been serving Gerhart for over half a century.
I've got that one. Okay.
The council anticipates asking voters in May 2026 to consider one or more options. These options include short-term fixes, such as a remodel of the existing stations. A remodel may extend the life of our current facilities for approximately 10 years, but could limit options for modifications to meet industry standards beyond that. Long-term solutions, such as the construction of a new building, are also being considered. A newly constructed building would be designed to serve the community for 50 years or more.
So not to criticize, but could that necessary changes be necessary upgrades?
Sure. Anybody have a problem with that? Necessary changes to necessary upgrades?
Can we have that written out, Chad? And then we can get back to you on anything that we see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dana.
I can email it to you right now. I think I can.
So we've got who, what, and when. We're gonna draft the questions, including the beginning statement. Chad, you said that could be completed within 2 or 3 weeks.
To draft the questions?
Yeah,
Oh.
to get it like.
Yeah, I think we could get into a pretty good shape by next week. You know, just to get an idea for the council and then to float those out with some of these changes that we were talking about, including an explanatory statement. Next week, and get that to the council. We can bat it around a little bit on an individual basis with any ideas that you might have. And then we'll get it ready for submitting. And then the week after, we'll get it ready to go out, and then the week after that, we'll get it out.
So do we need to meet as a group again before he's got it in a package ready to go.
Well, I think it would be ideal if we met again to see the package.
To see the final product
Yeah,
before it
I think that
goes.
would, yeah, I would
Because-
like to see it before it goes out.
Yeah. And as a group, any changes we make would be ideally done in a work session. If there had to be changes, minor
It should be pretty,
punctuation changes, that kind of thing, allowed and loud.
Specific, yes. So, yeah, we could take a look at what would, a quick meeting such as this afternoon. Maybe spend a half an hour going over the document, thumbs up, thumbs down. And then giving us any input that you might have. And
Right.
We can get ready for publishing.
And it shouldn't be a big thumbs up or down, it should be, we've already gone over it with you individually. So all the feedback you should have, but as a group, we can go, yes, this is what we want.
I leave on the 15th.
I'd be thinking about doing that earlier. If we could do something quick and easy and during business hours, then we could do that last year or later. So we'll come up with that dates.
The 13th or 14th.
Yeah.
So pencil in or hold half hour, 13th and the 14th.
It's a Monday or a Tuesday.
Yeah.
The first day is the first is a holiday. Or
Uh,
13th is, yeah.
yeah, I think that's a good start. I might even look at next week.
Okay.
Because if we're gonna let this survey soak as long as, that's a crabbing term for how long a pot stays in the water. If we're gonna let the survey be out there for a period of time, if we could get 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, or at least a good solid 2 weeks on the survey, we'll know a lot more than what we do now.
I'll be on Zoom.
So we'll come up with some dates. We'll look at the 13th, 14th is possible, and I'll talk with my team. We'll see how fast we can do a turnaround on this.
And Carrie is back on the 13th and 14th though.
12.
That's a Sunday.
Yeah.
Not gonna
But,
be on-
What is this?
You're not?
No, we're not gonna be on.
No, but I'll be back.
Oh, yes, I got that.
Okay,
Would you be able to do a short meeting over Zoom?
yeah.
Okay.
We can arrange something.
It's the 6th.
We'll keep that as
It's
a.
the old Columbus Day now in
Do you have
Indigenous
any
people.
concerns about that?
And we work that day.
Oh, that Monday.
We work that day. It's a work day for us. Only federal employees get that day off. Schools
The dirty dogs.
Schools,
don't. So regular school day.
So you all will be working?
We work that day.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we'll be here. Working.
We've accomplished everything that we set out to do.
Well, that's great. Look at that. Good job. That's why you're in charge.
You've got the gavel.
Yes, I do. Anyone got anything else they want to add or say?
Just reminder that Bonamici's team sent out an email inviting us all to an elected officials meeting on Saturday before her town hall in Seaside. I know you won't be here, but if you're interested, tomorrow's the cutoff for the RSVP.
tomorrow's the cutoff.
I won't be here. Yeah, the LOC meeting.
Wow, yeah.
Okay. Adjourn.
Do you want me to first?
I read it.
Sorry.